So with that in mind, when did the album start to take shape? Did you have a feeling of what it was going to be? Because it is quite eclectic. There are a lot of elements in it. So when did kind of the shape of the album become clear to you?
I think quite late in the game. I spend most of my energy writing the songs and not trying to stick too firmly to any one genre or trying to make it all sound like, I consider myself a folk musician at heart, but there are a lot of songs in this album like Freak, like Waves, which are kind of sitting at different sides of the musical spectrum. And I think like folk is where my heart lives in the middle, and there's like a number of songs in the album which speak to that folky, foot stomping, like driving kind of up-tempo folk, I call it, like Gold, the first song, Rather Have Me Dead, Thieves. Those are all like those kind of folk anthems that I really enjoy writing. But then there's also songs like Vultures, Underwater Blues, which are kind of like ballads. They're a little bit more like serious and sensitive or vulnerable songs. Hues of the Fall, the very last song, is like a very vulnerable, raw song where I recorded it without like a tempo, no drums, just like acoustic and vocal. So yeah, I think for me it was just about writing the best songs I could write. With Freak, I just started writing that and I followed it down, and by the time I got to the end of it, I was like, I don't even know what this is. It's like a reggae rap song, but that's okay because it's authentic. It's, I wrote it and for me it sounds great. So like, I know if I like my songs, then my audience will generally like them as well. So I think that's my goal, write songs that I enjoy, and in so doing, I'm pretty certain that my audience will like them as well.
Right. And you mentioned some of the more, I would call them introspective songs. I'm not sure if that's fair, but there's a couple of songs that deal more with your own mind and going inwards a little bit. Youth from the Fall is one of them. I think, for instance, the song "Rather Have Me Dead." Where does that come from?
Came from a massive fight that I had with my girlfriend in Berlin last year when we were traveling, and I just remember feeling very embarrassed by some of the things we both said to each other, and I think this is something that everyone who's been in a long-term relationship or any relationship can resonate with, where you get into a fight and you almost embarrass yourself by the things you say, or the anger and the ferocious behavior that kind of sometimes happens when people are in love and disagreeing about something. And there was a moment when we were having that fight where I looked at her and I just saw like fire in her eyes, and like I thought I could see like that she wanted to hurt me physically, and that was the first time I'd ever seen that. I was like, oh wow, you're that angry that you want to attack me right now. And so I was like, hold that thought, and I like ran off and I got my guitar and I wrote the whole song that day. And at the end of the day I was like, baby, I wrote this song about our fight, don't you like it? And she was like, But so yeah, that's a song about something I think a lot of people are dealing with.
But is that part then, because you also mentioned the folk tradition, is that part of then the honesty that is necessary to convey that a certain emotion? Or?
Yeah, I think that's what folk art, maybe that's why I say that I've got folk music at my heart, because I grew up listening to Woody Guthrie and Bob Dylan and all sorts of the kind of folk heroes of mine, and they are, I think the culture of folk music has always come from wherever it's sung in the world, however it sounds totally different in different parts of the world, but it's always been about people kind of just looking at their own lives, what they see around them, what's happening, and it's kind of like stories, stories of the times. So it doesn't have to be about anything. Yeah, it can be about anything. It's just about conveying what I see around me is kind of my duty in a way, the way I see my duty to myself.
Final question then, the album is called Critical as Water, and as we talked about, water is an element. But for you, what is the symbolism of water? Because I heard you talk about kind of the malleability of water.
Yeah, it's got so many layers, I think, for me. My connection with the ocean runs deep from being living by the ocean since I was a small boy and being connected with it, like just from on a day-to-day basis, swimming, surfing, sailing, snorkeling, whatever it was. I was often in the water, and that I think affected the kind of person I've become. And but also in the last few years, it's felt a lot like I've been in a storm, you know, like learning to cope with this newfound fame, learning to cope with living in hotel rooms around the world, spending sometimes 8 or 9 months of the year touring abroad. It puts a lot of pressure on a person, has a lot of expectation, a lot of anxiety, you know, to perform every night and to be able to give so much energy. It really, it took a lot out of me in the beginning, and I had to find my own balance. I had to find how I balance giving so much energy and how do I get my energy back so that I can do it all again the next night as I go around the world. And so I think the idea of just learning to flow like water was a concept that I was working and meditating on every day. Like when difficult things, it felt like every day I had a difficult challenge in the last few years. And I never felt that when I was younger. Before I found music, I was living at home. I was doing lots of different jobs that I didn't really enjoy. I wasn't really living my purpose life yet. And when I found music and my dreams and purpose started coming together, then that's when the struggle really began. You know, it's like a fight. Every day you fight to be able to do what you love. And that fight has brought me into contact with this idea of learning how to flow, because if you're trying to fight all of your battles every day, you're going to lose, you know.
Very last question then, what drives you? What keeps you fighting? What keeps you kind of aiming for that?
What keeps me going forward? I think I really enjoy what I do. Honestly, I love making music, and I love bringing people that joy. My shows have always been about like my shows are always about like inclusiveness. You know, I want the audience to sing with me. I want to like get in the audience. I want to loop the audience in. I want it to be interactive, and that's what kind of gives me energy. If I was just up there singing my songs and then I was leaving and that was it, then I don't think I would get what I need out of the equation. So for me, it brings me a lot of joy. I love doing it, and I rely very heavily on music to get me through my own tough times in life, to get me through my dark times. I think everyone, no matter where you are in the spectrum of humanity, you have the same kind of challenges, but just in different ways. And everyone is having their darkness, whatever that might be. And so for me, music has always been a very healthy way to tackle my darkness, my depression, the sadnesses that life has brought. And I think I've used music very positively for my own life in that sense, and I've found ways to bring that out into the world and help other people as well. And so for me, that's important. That's like my purpose that drives me, I suppose, is to help other people and to help myself. It's like cathartic experience, I suppose.
On that note, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Perfect.